Hello everyone, welcome to Monday's show, and a pretty sombre show today as we mourn the loss of Philippe Clement as Rangers manager. On with the show. Yes, the news reached us late last night that yet another Ibrox boss has fallen to Brendan Rodgers. Clement joins Mark Warburton, Graham Murty, Pedro Caixinha and Michael Beale as the men to be sacked at Rangers, while Brendan Rodgers has been in charge across the city. There's some interim ones in there as well. But yeah, for me, Philippe Clement is right up there in recent times. So many moments that you could pick out, a lot of them from recent times. The excuses that he made, probably the biggest excuse maker we've seen in the Ibrox dugout. And that's some going for Clement, given that he succeeded Michael Beale, who loved an excuse as well. Yep, difficult to pick out just one highlight from Philippe Clement's time in Ibrox. I do have one though that I really enjoyed, and to be honest, it was like a culmination of things at the end of last season, like the pressure just being turned up in Clement and him buckling, and it was I think just before the final league derby of last season that was coming up at Celtic Park. I think it was a game prior, we beat Hearts, and after the game Brendan Rodgers finished his press conference by saying, "And we'll have some fun next weekend in the derby." And it was a completely harmless comment that was kind of taken out of context by a lot of people and drummed up, obviously, by certain members of the media and put to Philippe Clement 24 hours later. I think Rangers were playing on the Sunday, we'd been playing on the Saturday. And Philippe Clement had 24 hours to think of a witty response, a retort to Brendan Rodgers. And after 24 hours of scratching his head and thinking, he came up with, "We will have fun also." Yeah, his time to strike really was last season. Looking back at things, we were in a bit of a kind of tough place at times last season for a number of reasons we don't need to go back into. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers back at the club, it was all just a bit awkward. There was a lot of external things going on, injuries. We'd had a pretty miserable transfer window that summer when Brendan Rodgers came back in. I just said we don't need to go into them, and I literally have just gone into them. Basically, last season was the time for Rangers to strike under Philippe Clement, and they didn't. They bottled it. We went and won the title. Winners stayed winning and all of that kind of stuff. We won the league convincingly in the end. We won the Scottish Cup final against them as well. And that just sent us into the new season feeling good about ourselves. And it sent them all in, I think, just kind of worrying about whether Clement was actually the answer. And this season's just been a complete procession, really, for us. And I know there's still work to be done in terms of winning the league, but I can't remember many domestic seasons that have just been so easy for Celtic. And I know we've done unbeaten seasons previously, so maybe there are better examples, and we've obviously lost 2 games this season, but it has all just felt very obvious from the start of the season. Virtually the first game of the season when Rangers dropped points at Tynecastle, that we're going to win the league, and I think we are. Sadly, Philippe's not going to be around to see that though at Ibrox. But who is next? Well, the talk in the Scottish media is, and get this, Barry Ferguson is apparently going to be given the Rangers job until the end of the season, presumably to raise standards and bring back some sort of winning culture from the previous club. I don't know. He's had a storied managerial career. He has led Clyde, Celtic Hearts and Alloa Athletic thus far. He was also last seen arguing with disgruntled Bear Derek on Go Radio after a derby defeat. Loved this exchange. Had to watch it earlier to refresh my memory. Derek called him a cheerleader. Ferguson replied by saying, "Don't call me a cheerleader." Derek bounced back with, "You are a cheerleader." And then Ferguson said, "Well, that's your opinion." The next manager of Rangers, everyone. And I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will be asked about all of this at today's press conference. He is going to speak to the media today ahead of the game against Aberdeen, which is tomorrow night. We'll discuss it a little bit today. Sorry to spend the first 5-6 minutes talking about Rangers, but hopefully you'll understand it's a good time to gloat a little bit, although to be honest every time is good to gloat at the moment. In terms of Brendan Rodgers' press conference, presumably there'll be a fair bit of chat about Saturday's game, and in particular the controversial disallowed goal at Easter Road. I did say on Saturday that we're hoping for some sort of, I think magic footage was the phrase that I used to clear all this up, and while Premier Sports and the SFA have been unable to provide a perfect angle, thankfully in typical Scottish football style we have Hibs TikTok vlogger Morgan Ford, who was in a great position at Easter Road, and having screenshotted the TikTok. Yeah, it's still obviously extremely difficult to tell if the ball was in or out. My instinct now is that about 95% of the ball was out of play, but I'm really not sure it was all out, which it obviously needs to be. But the issue here is that nobody knows, and we're now nearly 48 hours on from the game. And just to clarify, there was a bit of chat in the comments. I think it was a guy, I think his name was Hugh. Apologies if I've got that wrong. I should have double checked before. I think Hugh commented in saying, Hamish, you're wrong. This is a factual decision. The clear and obvious thing doesn't come into it. I don't think that is the case, Hugh, having looked into it. I believe the factual stuff is to do with whether you send the referee to the monitor or not. And like factual stuff is like to do with where it like hits a certain part of the body, or if like a foul is taking place inside or outside the box, or like we saw at the weekend whether a ball has been kept in or not. And I guess offsides are factual as well. That's why referees don't get sent to the monitor for offsides with VAR. So yeah, that's my understanding. I mean, I'm literally reading this from the SFA website, and this is an explainer article they put up, and it said, when can VAR intervene? And the answer is only in specific circumstances when the VAR thinks the on-field referee team has made a clear and obvious error or missed a serious incident. So that's the only time when VAR can intervene, is when a clear and obvious error has been made or a serious incident has been missed. So, yep, it was a factual decision, hence why Stephen McLean wasn't set to the monitor. But the clear and obvious thing still applies there. And yeah, I really struggle to see how it was a clear and obvious error on Saturday. We're all still discussing it 48 hours on, as I say. So, yeah, I don't think VAR should have stepped in there. Equally, if the officials, the linesman had said the ball had been out, I don't think VAR should have been able to step in and say, no, actually it was in. I think you still have to like trust the officials to do their job and keep the clear and obvious thing in your mind. Anyway, Arnie Engels was asked about it after the game, and specifically what Alistair Johnson had been saying about things. He said it was in. We also saw the images back, and you cannot really see if it's out or not. I think for me, you need to rely on the referee's decision and not on the VAR. We all thought it was in. The bench also thought it was in. So yeah, that's disappointing. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because people are still obviously discussing it. It's been pretty, pretty high in people's agendas over the past 48 hours. We've not really had too much refereeing VAR controversy this season from memory. I could be totally wrong there. Certainly I've not been as aware of it, but on Saturday it was pretty big and pretty important. But we should also say, I think it's important to say that Hibs played well on Saturday, and Celtic certainly in the first half were pretty poor. But also, you know, it's one game. I think generally people feel a lot better about things when they see that Rangers have lost. Shortly after the game, that always boosts everyone's moods. That's just how things are in Glasgow. And we've got a good opportunity to move on now. And I think that's what we all need to do. I mean, to be honest, I think everyone is kind of moved on at this stage. We're looking good for the league title, actually even better than we did before the weekend. And now we've got a game against Aberdeen tomorrow night, who are in third place now. By the way, I should just say, taking a wee look earlier, because we can probably start to talk about winning the league, and particularly when and where we could maybe clinch the title. At the moment in the league, we are 13 points clear of Rangers. Both teams, both ourselves and Rangers, have 11 games or 33 points to play for. There are only 2 match days before the next derby takes place at Celtic Park on Sunday, the 16th of March. So, yeah, we can't win it that day. That's not possible for us to beat them that day and win the league title. The most that we could be ahead of them after that derby, if we were to win every game and they're to lose every game, would be 22 points, and you'd have 24 to play for after that. So we can't clinch it before then or on that day. We can, however, clinch it pretty shortly after that. Assuming that we beat them in that derby, it looks likely that the league would be sealed before the split. I think you're potentially looking at St Johnstone away or Kilmarnock at home in early April. Now, Kilmarnock at home was actually Flag Day, wasn't it, at the start of the league season? So it'd be cool if that was the day we clinched the league title, and obviously clinched it against Kilmarnock last season as well. The magic number that people are always interested in terms of wins to win the title, 6 in a row. If we win our next 6 league games, regardless of whether Rangers keep winning against everyone else, if we win our next 6 games, which includes the derby against them, we will be league champions for a 4th season in a row. Just going to finish with a few comments from the weekend before we go. Less kind of, well, I guess they are on the game on Saturday, but more generally speaking. Brian McVeigh saying there's an argument to say that Rodgers underestimated a Hibs team that is on such a good run. These players should be good enough to play 2 tough games in a row. The fact he brought on the 3 players he rested at halftime says it all. Poor performance and a lack of judgment by Rodgers. I didn't feel it was a severely weakened team or anything on Saturday. He made 3 changes from Munich. I think if we'd been playing like a bottom 6 team at Celtic Park, you would have seen maybe 5-6 changes possibly. So I thought he showed plenty of respect to Hibs, given that it was after such a big effort in Munich. I think we're always going to see changes. And I don't think the changes should necessarily be weakening the team. I think there's a debate to be had over a few players though, but I just thought it was an off day on Saturday, but these things happen. Matty McIntyre, look, we got a get out of jail free card thanks to St Mirren, so let's move on. But Taylor should not be seen in another game for us. Schlupp, I'd be happy with as our left back if we weren't getting Tierney. Maida should be our main striker and use the Kyogo money for another left and right winger. I do think Jeff Schlupp should be our left back going forwards for the rest of the season. As I said with Stevie at the weekend, we don't really have many more midweek games coming up, so there's not going to be the need for rotation, and it tends to be fullbacks, wingers who you rotate more, I guess because they do probably more running, and it's important they're in kind of really fresh and feeling good about things. So yeah, I think Schlupp should be starting at left back. I just think he's a better option than Greg Taylor at the moment. In terms of next season, I really like the idea of Kieran Tierney and Jeff Schlupp being our 2 left backs. I think that would have us, really strong in that position. There may well be real, wage and contract complications there with Jeff Schlupp. We don't really know whether he wants to or will want to move to Celtic permanently. He's out of contract with Palace in the summer. Especially if he knows Tierney's coming in and he wouldn't be first choice, obviously. But I really like him. I think he's been good so far. He looks strong. He looks quick. He's good with the ball, and I think there's more to come from him as well. We saw bits of that in the second half at Easter Road that I've not seen so far from him. So I'm really enthused about him, and I want to see him in that starting lineup for tomorrow night's game against Aberdeen. And yeah, that's what we're moving on to now. So it's going to be an interesting one tomorrow night. They've picked up a little bit. I think they've won 3 in a row now, back to 3rd in the league table. They obviously had that really incredible start to the season and then kind of fell off a cliff and turned into the worst team in the league for probably a couple of months, if not longer. But it does seem like they're starting to get back to where they should be. So I think it's going to be a tough game tomorrow night. But I just sense that the team maybe feeling a bit of injustice from Saturday, partly to do with the officials and the way that went at the end with the disallowed goal. I think also to do with their own performance as well and letting the standards slip a little bit, or a fair bit in that first half. I do think Celtic back at Celtic Park will be really up for it tomorrow night, and we have been so strong at home domestically this season. I think in the league we've still only conceded 2 goals at Celtic Park all season. Pretty sure, and they were actually against Aberdeen in the space of 10 minutes. So I think the team will be fine tomorrow night, hoping to see a strong team named, and Jota hopefully back in the lineup, and Sloop at left back, and the midfield looking strong again. And yeah, feeling good about things. But we've still got tomorrow's video to chat a bit more about the game. As I mentioned right at the top, we'll have Brendan Rodgers speaking to the media later today, so that's sure to be a pretty interesting press conferences with a few of the topics that we've spoken about today coming up, as well as a few other things. So we'll tackle that, or I'll tackle that on tomorrow's video, and look properly ahead to the game against Aberdeen. So join me tomorrow, everyone. Thank you.